In this video, I'm going to be answering all of your questions when it comes to the DTF hack. Make sure you guys watch all the way to the end so you don't miss a thing. If you guys have been following the DTF hack from the very beginning, you guys know that there was a lot of controversy around the DTF powder. There was so much scare and hype of whether it was safe or not. So many people recording short videos and leaving comments and making all of these threads saying it was unsafe to use this powder unless you were actually using a DTF printer and you had all of the gear like their respirators and all of that stuff. It scared the crafting community, right? So everybody's like, should I buy it? Should I test this? And let me just say, all of that is false to an extent. Whenever it comes to the DTF powder, there is different powders on the market. There is ones that are very strong, very chemical bound, and there is ones that is a lot more safer to use. So please make sure you do your research whenever you invest into your powder. When it comes to the DTF powder and the DTF film, these brands have came on board. So if you go over to Amazon and type in the DTF hack with sublimation, you're going to see at-home kits that include the powder as well as the film. So these companies have jumped right on board. If it was not safe, they definitely would not be telling you to use it without a respirator. And like I said, I'm not dismissing the big companies, those small businesses even that run DTF printers all day long and they have respirators to be safe, or they're in a huge shop with all of this ventilation because they have multiple printers and shakers and all of this stuff. So definitely make sure you do your homework. But one thing whenever it comes to the DTF hack is it's a hack. So we are not doing everything that the DTF film industry, if you will, is doing. Now, what I will say when the controversy first started, number one, it could just be as simple as those powders that they use, theirs do say toxic. I remember there was this girl that was recording multiple videos over on TikTok about me when I was recording this for design bundles. She would make all of this content saying, don't do what she's doing and all of those things. All of her allegations were completely false. But guess what? She owned and sold DTF transfers. So when we started making our very own DTF transfers, it was coming into their world. I get that scare because we're going to shut down their business where we were purchasing transfers. We no longer had to do that as a crafter. If we wanted one or two, we could take our own sublimation printer or inkjet printer and print our own. So I feel like there was a huge scare. So they were trying to shut down the crafting community. Whether that is true or not, I'm not sure, or the fact that they had different powder than us. I know that in particular, this same girl, she went out and purchased my powder because she was going to prove me wrong, that on the packaging, it even tells you how unsafe it is and that you should use a respirator. But then she purchased this very same one and it didn't say that. So like I said, always do your own research. And remember, this is a hack. And keep in mind, the DTF powder is very similar to embossing powder. When it comes to purchasing the DTF powder, take out that guesswork. Instead of trying to figure out which one is safe or not, check out the ones that I have already linked down below for you so you guys don't have to go through and read all of this stuff and try to figure it out. I've already done that for you. So once again, check these powders out. Another big question I get whenever it comes to the DTF powder is the black DTF powder. So many questions. People are like, have you tried it? What about the black DTF powder? Should I buy it? If I buy it, can I put it on a dark garment? So in the actual DTF world, the black DTF powder is made for eliminating that hue that you would get from the white clear powder in a sense. So if I was putting it on a black t-shirt, because DTF printers have white ink, certain ones, you would be able to eliminate that little bit of a border that you would get using this clear that you could see on a dark garment. It'll also intensify. So for example, if I was doing an all black design, it will intensify those colors. The black DTF powder in the DTF hack community, we don't need it. That is for the actual DTF printer. So once again, keep in mind this is a DTF hack, so we can't do everything and follow all of the same steps as the actual DTF printers. Another thing that I personally noticed when testing the black DTF powder, it was another brand. It was not these brands right here. So if there is a black in these, I have not tried it. But I tried it in a different brand and the smell was horrible. So that one had a very chemically smell. So I could get where people that are actually in the DTF transfer, they actually have the printers and they work with chemicals like that, the powders that actually have that strong smell. If it's not just the black, it is so horrendous. It smells awful. These two powders right here have zero smell. There is no smell off of these. But just to wrap up the question for the black DTF powder, you don't need it for the DTF hack. Another thing I almost forgot, whenever I reached out about the DTF powders and the safety, they said that it is non-toxic and odorless. One more thing to note is whenever you see that steam or smoke and you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is a crazy chemical that's coming to get me, they said that that is a phenomenon. That is the glycerin in the ink. So just like sublimation, because we're using the sublimation inks, whenever we go to press those, you see that smoke coming out. That's all that is. It is the glycerin. For our next set of questions, we're going to go over the DTF film. A question I get all of the time is, what brand do you recommend? I have been using Off Nova and Dalmatian since the beginning. Now there is different ones. You'll notice that they are matte or they are glossy. For example, you'll see this one is matte and this one is glossy. So for the matte, both sides of it will look like this, where with the glossy, you will have a side that is glossy. Between the matte and the glossy has always been my favorite because it is so much easier to figure out which side is the front and the back. So the glossy side is obviously the back and the matte side is going to be the side that you're going to print on. Now, whenever it comes to the matte sheets, in order to figure out which side is to be printed on or not, if you will just scrape a little corner, you'll notice that that matte coating disappears. You're going to notice that you can kind of almost see through it now. That means that is the side that you want to print on. Not only can you get the film in glossy or matte, you can also get it in glitter. So there is glitter sheets, and what this is going to do is make your design completely glitter. I love this stuff, and two of my favorites are Dalmatian once again and Off Nova. I do believe when we did a test on this, so if you guys are curious about the glitter DTF, check out the video that I have linked below labeled glitter, and I've completely went over this. I do believe that Dalmatian had one for me, but I did do both of these and they are awesome. So if you guys want to add a little bit of glitter to your DTF hack, check out the glitter DTF film. Another question I get about glitter and the DTF hack is, can you mix glitter with the DTF powder to get a glitter effect? I have not tested this out just yet, but if it's something that you're interested in seeing if it does work, let me know in the comments below and we'll make it happen. Another question about the DTF film is the size. How big can you get the DTF film? Or I can't find the bigger DTF film sheets. I have linked this one down below. This is the 11 by 17. So I run this through my Sawgrass SG1000. So you could run this through your bigger sublimation printers, inkjet printers, and all of those things. But if you want to print the 13 by 19, you can actually get it in the roll. So right here, Dalmatian also sells it by the roll. They even have bigger ones. This one is only $19.99 and it is 32.8 feet. So if you guys want to actually purchase this by the roll, you definitely can. So for example, for the Sawgrass SG500 as well as the Sawgrass SG1000, you can purchase separately the bypass tray. If you guys want to know how to install one of these, I actually have a video. I'll link it down below where I show you guys how easy it is to set one of these up. And you can actually run 13 by 19 paper through here, but you can also run the rolls. Now, if you were using the Sawgrass SG500, you would want to run the rolls that are 8.5 wide, and then you can go as long as you would like to. But either way, this is going to allow you to use the rolls. Can we print on something else other than the DTF film? And the answer is yes. You can actually use parchment paper. So I've had a question, can you use butcher paper? You cannot because it is paper. You cannot use copy paper or sublimation paper. Those are also other questions that I've had. Because whenever you melt those powders, the powders melt once you press it, it's going to stick to that paper. So definitely make sure you are printing on something that has a wax coating. Now, whenever it comes to this parchment paper, it's actually a silicone. I always say wax, but it is a silicone. Another question I get all of the time about using the parchment paper is which side am I printing on? The parchment paper sheets that I buy in particular, they're both double-sided. So it does not matter which side you're printing on. But if your parchment paper only has one side with that wax silicone coating, you want to print on the side that has that coating. Now, if you guys are curious about how do you print on a piece of parchment paper, and this is new to you, definitely check out my video where I teach you guys how you can print on the parchment paper. When it comes to parchment paper, it also comes in different sizes. So for example, I want to say these are pretty close to like the 11 by 17, and then you can even get them in like 8.5 by 11, as well as the roll. I have heard that you can buy the sheets as well as the rolls at the Dollar Tree, but whenever it comes to the rolls, you could grab this at your local grocery store and stuff like that. Now, Heat Press Nation also sells it by the rolls. Another question I've been getting recently about that parchment paper hack is how to feed it through. So I taped it to the paper just like I would with the film. Once again, if you guys are new to the DTF hack, check out my other videos. I'll have them linked down below. I'll walk you all the way through the process of using even a sublimation printer, an inkjet printer, all of those things, and show you guys how to run it through your printer. So for me, I always tape mine to a piece of paper and get it to run through. That's what has worked successful for me. Whenever it comes to an Epson, I have found stacking multiple papers, or even my inkjet, is stacking multiple papers together and then putting the film in front, and then it will feed through. That's a printer that has it through the back. Now, I have seen others say in the comments that they were able to run their parchment paper without taping it to paper. So once again, remember, this is a DTF hack. And it's going to be a lot of trial and error for everybody. Everybody has a different printer. Everybody has different settings. So play with those settings and figure out what works best for you. For our next set of questions, we're going to go over printers. The very first question is, what printer do I recommend for the DTF hack? I am always going to recommend the Sawgrass Sublimation Printer, whether you have the 500 or the 1000 or even the older versions, the 400 or the 800. I always highly recommend using the Sawgrass because me as well as other crafters in the comments below has found complete success without having issues. The only issue I will have is if I print too close to the top. So I always try to center my design, and then whenever it pulls through, I don't have to worry about it pulling through and smearing ink. So I always center my design on my paper and I have zero issues at all. If you can get your Epson printer that is converted with sublimation ink, I do recommend that. If you can get it to feed through, you're going to have just as much success as me with a Sawgrass because it is sublimation ink. So I will always recommend sublimation ink over inkjet or pigment ink, which I'll get into in just a second. When it comes to the converted Epson printer, the questions I get all of the time is, help, I have roller marks, I can't get mine to feed through, what settings should I use, how can I do this? The problem is I no longer own a converted Epson sublimation printer, say that 10 times fast. I am making a separate video about that and my reasonings of why I don't own one, and I choose the Sawgrass over the Epson. So if you guys are curious about that, stay tuned because that video is coming very soon. So what I've been recently recommending is going over to TikTok or even right here on YouTube. It's the short format video that I'm noticing there is so many other content creators. So I'll put a few down below just so you guys can see that are showing success. So a lot of people are removing their rollers. They are adding a piece of wood or cardboard back to where the rollers are. So what's happening with the roller marks is your paper starts to dip down, and that's where the roller marks are apparently happening from what I'm seeing. So people are just removing that roller, or they're getting it to make sure it stays straight all the way through. Now, whenever it comes to feeding the paper, you just got to find out what works best for you. Once again, there's other content creators that are actually having this success. So what I always recommend is going over to, say, for example, TikTok or here on YouTube and looking for a converted Epson for the DTF hack, using those words together. Once again, I will have a couple of those down below just to help you along the way. For me personally, I've had an Epson that is an inkjet printer, and once again, I was able to stack the papers, put the film in front, and it fed it through. I didn't even have to have it taped, and it worked very successfully. When it comes to the sublimation, and my reasoning behind using sublimation over an inkjet is the wash test and the durability. I've been doing this for so long. It's been over a year now. I want to say that we're going on almost 2 years of this DTF hack, and I've done so many wash tests. I've had zero issues whenever it comes to the sublimation, and that's why I say it is dang near a 100% dupe. if not a 100% dupe. Highly recommend if you're wanting to get into DTF but you don't want to spend thousands of dollars on a printer, just simply use your sublimation printer. You're not having to do anything extra, and it makes you have two printers. You technically still have a sublimation printer because you're not doing anything to it, and then you also have the DTF as well. So it's really cool utilizing what you have. I'm all about saving money, and so use what you have. Now, here's the issue whenever it comes to using an inkjet printer. So whenever it comes to using what you have, you don't have a sublimation printer, but you also want to follow along with this hack. You can, but there is going to be pros and cons. So let's go over those now. Whenever it comes to an inkjet printer, you can use any inkjet printer that you would like. But keep in mind that you're going to have more success if it has pigment ink over dye ink. Dye ink will wash out. So the reason whenever we do this DTF hack, and say for example, you guys have seen me use my Canon, the color will wash out in the washer, but the black will not, because the black ink is pigment ink. The rest are dye, and that is what's happening. So for example, if you want to do the DTF hack and you only have an inkjet, with the colors, you can still put it on things you're not washing. For example, you could do a pillowcase, you could do a tote bag, you could do a hat. There are so many items that we don't wash that you guys can still accomplish and get the colors. Now, whenever it comes to black, you could do black and you're gonna be able to wash it. So if you guys check out my video where I recently tested out so many different things when it came to glass, tumblers, those are more questions that we get. Can we do the DTF hack on wood? Can we do it on tumblers, glass, all of this stuff? We tested it on multiple things and we found some fails and we found some things that were successful. So this was one of them. They were all done. This was done with sublimation ink. But just to show you really quick, this design is in black. I could still do this with my inkjet printer. If your inkjet printer has pigment ink, so all of your colors are pigment, it's going to stay. Now, I have seen with the wash test that some of those colors will get a little bit wonky. So for example, even with the black, so I don't know with the pigment ink printers, if the black ink now is not 100% pigment, because I've noticed that the black will kind of turn brown, and then you have blues that'll turn a little bit weird. So I've had people in the comments below tell me that, and I've also been recently seeing it with that. So whenever it comes to recommending the best printer that I possibly can with the DTF hack, is always going to be sublimation. But yes, you can accomplish this with your inkjet as well as a pigment inkjet, but just know there's going to be pros and cons. There's things that you can wash and there's things you can't wash. So you can still follow along and hang out with us, but it's just going to be to a limitation. A few tips whenever it comes to the Sawgrass sublimation printer. Another thing I see all the time, even in the sublimation world, not just this DTF hack, is I've been wanting a Sawgrass printer for so long, but they never go on sale. I wish they would go on sale. A place that I highly recommend you check out, a used sublimation printer, which is going to be basically refurbished to brand new, and you're going to get it at a lower cost, is Heat Press Nation. If you go over and check out their printers, for example, we are over here with the SG500, and you can see it is on sale for $479.20. It's going to come with the inks as well as the printer still. So if you guys want to snag this at a discounted price, even whenever it comes to the bypass tray, these can be found on the clearance as well at Heat Press Nation. So if somebody's purchased them, they weren't a fan, they sent them back, or they've used them in the showroom or something like that, you're gonna find them over here. So I highly recommend that you check that out. The same thing with the SG1000, you will find them here on sale. Now, one thing I want to point out that you guys may not realize is that Sawgrass actually sells Chromablast ink as well. So if you guys don't know what Chromablast ink is, it's technically DTF ink. So what it is you're going to use your exact same printer. You don't use the one you already have your ink in. You have to buy a new one. So this one right here, for example, brand new Sawgrass SG500, but the ink that's going to come with it is going to be Chromablast. It's going to use a special type of paper and the ink, and you're going to be able to put that on 100% cotton. So if you guys want a solution and you don't want to do the DTF hack, all you simply have to do is buy a second Sawgrass sublimation printer, or your first one, for example, and just simply purchase the Chromablast inks, because you're going to have a DTF printer and you're going to be able to still have the Sawgrass in a sense. So it's separate inks and it's a separate type of paper. If you guys are curious about that, I have a video on it and I'll also have a link below. When it comes to the DTF hack, there's actually a way to print with white ink. Yes, I said that correctly. There is a way to do the DTF hack with white ink. And you're like, Crystal, how? Sawgrass only has a spot for so many inks. The Epson converted printer only has so many spots. There is no white ink. What are you talking about? I am talking about the Epson EcoTank 8550. So check this out. This printer can do 13 by 19. It is only $699. So it is about $100 more than the Sawgrass SG 500. So it's cheaper than the Sawgrass SG 1000, and you will be able to do the 13 by 19, and you will not need a bypass tray. So this is a pretty nice size printer. And if you notice all of those ink cartridges, you're like, I don't see a white crystal. That is because that is made for the regular printer. We are going to hack it, right? So you're going to have to purchase the ink. For your inks, there is multiple inks on the market, just like there is for your converted Epson sublimation printers. So one of them that sells this ink is Cosmo ink. So you can see here to get the white, it is $30, and then the other colors are just $20. So these are quite big bottles, and then you're going to be able to fill that multiple times. Now, if you guys want to see a video on this and you want to see me do the converted Epson for the DTF hack, because I've never done it and I'm also curious, comment down below and we can definitely make it happen. Now, if you guys are curious today and you want to see more information on this, I highly recommend that you check out Craftable Things. I'm going to link her down below. She did a complete unboxing and setup with inks. I think she found her inks over on Etsy, but it's going to be the same thing. If I purchase it, I'm probably going to go ahead and do the Cosmo ink. So if you guys have not purchased a sublimation printer and you were going to get one and hack it, but you're now thinking, oh my gosh, I want that white ink, because guess what? With that white ink, you can put it on a dark garment. You're going to be able to put it on a black sweatshirt and all of that kind of stuff. You're going to wash these just like we do with sublimation. Now keep in mind, with a converted DTF printer, it's going to be just like buying an Epson and converting it with sublimation. You know that you're going to want to make sure you run something through it. So if you're a crafter like me and you're not using it every day, make sure you're at least printing something little just to keep those lines nice and clean. Now, something else that I've actually been thinking about, and nobody's actually questioned this, or even, I don't know if people have thought about it. You may have thought about it, but I've been recently thinking. So for example, if we want to do the roll, we know that we're going to need to get that powder on there quickly. So if I'm printing a gang sheet like they call in the DTF world, and it's coming off here, I need to be powdering. So I thought either A, we could technically have a tote right there and be working with it as it's going and kind of shaking it. You're just going to want a nice area that you can collect all that down below, like have parchment paper down or whatever you got going on. Or I'm thinking, why could you not buy a shaker dryer, right? So you could still buy the shaker dryer. So say you have the Sawgrass for $500, you already had it. The only thing you would have to buy is a shaker dryer machine. So your roll is going to go through there just like if it was the actual DTF printer. It's going to powder it for you, and it's going to heat it up and put it on that roll. So if you're still wanting to accomplish that, that's something to think about as well. Now let's back it up just a little bit. I have answered this question towards the beginning a little bit. Along the way, we've actually talked about this, but I really want to address it by itself. Another major question I get all of the time with the DTF hack is, can we put it on a black sweatshirt? Can we put it on a dark garment? Can we put it on colors? And so I wanted to briefly talk about that really quick, more in depth. So whenever it comes to the dark garments, no. The only way that you could do that is if you put down a layer of white HTV first and then put it on top. If you want to learn more about that, once again, there's another video and I'll have that linked below. So for example, this right here, I did this in a video. I'll also have it linked below. This is almost like, this is a dark gray. So you can see that that black still pops off here. So you want to stick to the lighter color. So this is in the black filled, but it is a gray, and you can still see how that black pops off here very nicely. Now, when it comes to your colors, something to keep in mind is putting it on the light colors, of course, but in your design itself. So for example, with this design, the colors of his glasses was actually the same color as this tote bag. So it actually blends in. So keep in mind with those colors, as long as it's a different color than the color you're putting it on, you're going to be able to see that. So this actually just blended through with this, but you can't even tell. It just looks like the way it's hovered over that line, and you can't even tell what's going on. So the thing is, when you're working with the colors, is to pay attention to the colors that are actually in your design. And then here's an actual example of the DTF Hack on colors. So this is a nice blue t-shirt, and you can see the design here. These colors are opposite of the blue. We've got purples and orange, but you can see how they show up on here. You can still see them, but they would definitely look much better if this was a lighter color. So yes, you can accomplish it, but this is what it's going to look like. And I'm showing you today because it's a question I get all of the time. So you can see it. It is successful, but it definitely would look better. If you guys wanted to do like a bleach t-shirt, so this was white here, it would really pop off there. I highly recommend you bleach that area first, completely wash your shirt, and then apply this. I would not put the bleach because it probably will destroy your design. Now that I've completely covered everything for the DTF Hack, a question I get is why? Why are we doing the DTF Hack? Or people will even ask me, why are you putting it on another white sweatshirt? I own a lot of white sweatshirts. The colors pop off of there so much better so you can see them. But I do mention, yes, you can do them on lighter colors. I have done other videos with things like that, but I really try to stick with the white shirt because it pops off the most. But why? Why are you doing the DTF Hack? Number one, to show that you can actually do the DTF Hack with your sublimation printer, inkjet, and all of that, because people want to. And it's so you can actually put it on a 100% cotton. So sublimation, you can only put it on polyester or poly blends, where with that DTF Hack, you're going to be able to do that. And instead of using your Cricut or a die cutting machine and having to cut out 15 different colors, this is going to do it for you one time. So that's why we are doing the DTF Hack. So who is the DTF Hack right for? I really gear it more towards the crafter over the seller. Yes, you can cure them, which I need to get into really quickly, and what heat press, but you could cure them and sell a few if you would like, but it would not be sustainable for a small business or a big business because it's going to take you so much longer to print these and prep them and so much more work and probably cost you a little bit more in the end doing it that way, compared to being able to accomplish so much more and get a lot more bang for your buck, probably with the supplies and all of that stuff for an actual DTF printer. So if I was going to be doing this for a small business or for a business in general, I would probably start out a little bit just to get my hands in there if I was doing a few here and there. But if I was definitely doing I was selling the transfers or I was definitely making the t-shirts, I would go straight to a DTF printer. Another question I get all the time, if it came to a DTF printer, which one would you recommend? There's actually two. So for example, if I was going to test one out today, it would be this one right here, the Prestige A4 in pink. There's different colors, but it would be in pink. This one comes with so many different supplies. You see it's $24.49. That's not bad at all. This one is from Swing Designs. I'll have it linked down below for you guys, but it comes with so much stuff. And I have heard a lot of good things about this particular printer. And once again, it is in pink. And I do like that Swing Design offers a firm, so you guys could pay it in payments. Now, if I was going to be doing a bigger business, I needed something a little bit bigger and beefier, I would definitely be going with this one right here from Racoma. Once again, they do offer financing, so if you're just now getting into a business and you don't have all the dough to put up front, that is another option for you. So the reason why I'm recommending two different ones, there's one for more like a small business just getting started, even a crafter, if you will, compared to something that's a little bit more commercial. So those would be the two that I personally would recommend, and those would be the two that I would purchase if I ever do decide to purchase the DTF printer. When it comes to the DTF Hack, the last thing I'm going to cover is curing. This is another huge question about the curing. Let me explain the curing process. So the curing process is simply to melt down those powders so they don't shift, they don't move or budge anywhere. It's not necessarily doing some sort of like how sublimation, you've got to get it at 385 and it's going to be changing the colors of the ink. It's not. It's just simply melting down that adhesive so that way it is one with that film and ready to be shipped out or stored for later. So when it comes to the DTF Hack, we don't necessarily need to do that. If I'm going straight to my t-shirt, and if you've been doing the hack long enough or even sublimation in general, you know that you know your placement. It's very, whenever you've been doing like sublimation for so long, it's very rare that you need to shift something around. So if you are pretty much more intermediate or pro level at doing stuff, you would not need to cure it because you're gonna one and done. So whenever it comes to no cure, which means you do not melt your powders, you're just going to make sure when you place it down on your item, you're not shifting it around so that way those powders don't move. You're gonna press it. So you do not have to cure. But if you do want to cure, there's several things that you can do. Number one, you can use your lower platen on your bigger heat press. My tip is pre-press your lower platen right before you put it on there, and that way your lower platen as well as your top platen are hot, and it's going to cure so much faster. You want to cure at 385 for 40 seconds. This is going to get those sublimation inks to activate. So that's why you're going to need that. But when it comes to pressing it, after they've been cured, you want to do 300 degrees for 20 seconds. Now, if you were going to be doing the no cure, which means you did not cure it with your heat press, you want to do 385 for the 40 seconds because you're curing and pressing at the same time. I know it can get confusing, but follow along with my other videos and I'll show you guys how easy it is. So what could you use to cure? Can I use a home iron? That's another question. So once again, you can use your bigger heat press. You can use your Cricut Easy Press. You can carefully flip it upside down. Once again, do that at your own risk. Make sure you use some heat gloves and things like that. Your heat pad, you can flip it upside down and you can actually put it on there. You want to put it where your powders are face up and it's going to cure it for you nicely. You can hover your Cricut Easy Press over it, just don't touch it. If you have a clamshell, you're just gonna wanna shut it to where it's barely hovered above, as much as you can without touching it. Once again, heat that lower platen first. If you have a swing away, those are nice, just slide it in there and it's absolutely perfect. Heat that lower platen first. But the other one I always recommend is the griddle. Get yourself a griddle that is separate from the kitchen. You can find them at your local yard sales, junk stores, even you can find them on Amazon and Walmart for 20 bucks. So that's something you can invest into. You may already have one. If you haven't seen those videos, definitely check those out as well. But you can just simply put it on that griddle and it melts it for you as well. So it becomes a curing machine for you. So there's so many different things that you can do along the way for this hack to make it a success. And once again, for us crafters, it really helps us to own not only a sublimation printer, but the DTF printer and avoid cutting all of that HTV. We have all those colors because it feels like HTV. That's another question I get. What does it feel like? It feels like a thin layer of HTV. And it does hold up in the wash. I do throw mine in the dryer. Now, whenever it comes to your inkjet inks and stuff like that, also be careful with your sublimation. If you get your inks at too big of a high heat, you may reactivate those inks. So if you ever notice that your inks are smearing or anything like that, it is because you are reactivating those inks. Or, for example, with inkjet or dye ink, if you will, you are getting those inks too hot and making them kind of shift and move around. So that's something that hopefully answers your questions as well. So I hope this video has helped you guys in some sort of way. And if you guys have not tried the DTF hack, but now you want to do it today, or maybe you're going to invest into a DTF printer, I want to know about it down below. Are you guys a crafter that just wants to have the second option, or are you guys getting into a business of some sort? Are you selling transfers? Are you going to be making t-shirts? I would love to know all of those details down below. The other question I'm sitting here asking myself is the DTF world taking over Cricut and Silhouette and all these die cutting machines because once again, you eliminate HTV? Or is it just something that is on top of this? I want to know all of your opinions down below. Let me know if you've tried a different powder or film or something that has worked along the way for you that has made it successful for your Epson or Sawgrass. Or did you guys learn something new about the converted DTF printer? Is that something you're going to check out? I would love to know all of that. Once again, all of the supplies that I recommend for the DTF hack as well as those printers, everything can be found linked below. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button down below and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.